Hello, the evening overview of the news from the television company Ostankino. Today, the visit of the President of the Korean Republic, Kim Yon-sam, to Moscow was completed. Its main result was the joint Russian-Korean declaration, providing for stronger interaction between the two countries in resolving the problem of the Asian-Pacific region. Not confirmed in the document, but a no less important result, one may consider the position of Russia stated by President Yeltsin on the problem of maintaining the non-nuclear status of the Korean Peninsula. With an official farewell ceremony in the Kremlin for the President of Korea, Kim Yon-sam, his first visit ended to the Russian Federation, and apparently both sides have reason to feel satisfaction by its results. A mutual desire to further dynamically develop two-sided relations was sealed by the Moscow Joint Declaration. On the unnerving problem of the possibility of Pyongyang producing nuclear weapons, Boris Yeltsin also expressed serious concern and did not exclude the perspective of adopting, as a last step, sanctions against North Korea by the international community. Also, the Russian proposal to convene a conference with the participation of both the Korean nations, Russia, the United States, China, and Japan, and the UN representatives and the IAEA, gives Pyongyang a chance to save face and not find itself isolated. In the sphere of business ties, further support was received. The idea of construction in Moscow of a Russian-Korean trade center, the broad participation of firms from the Republic of Korea in major projects in the Russian Far East, and only on the difficult problem of deferring the Russian debt agreement was not reached. But the Korean side expressed understanding of Russia's position, and it was decided that this question would be dealt with by experts. Today, a telephone conversation of the presidents of Russia and the United States took place. As the press service of the head of the Russian state said, the conversation which he had yesterday with the president of Korea, Kim Yon-sam, Boris Yeltsin informed Bill Clinton about Russia's approaches to resolve the nuclear problem of North Korea, including the idea of conducting a multilateral conference. The presidents agreed to instruct experts to efficiently work out these questions and to prepare a proposal. The heightening of tension over the North Korean nuclear problem has forced the President, Kim Yon-sam, to, by telephone from Moscow, give special instructions to the Prime Minister of the country to take all necessary measures to prepare for possible sanctions of the UN Security Council against North Korea. The government of South Korea has begun to prepare punitive measures against North Korea because of its non-compliance with obligations in nuclear safety. Seoul insists on implementing economic international sanctions against North Korea and is prepared on its side to heighten military preparedness in the event of urgent circumstances on the Korean Peninsula. As is known, the international community suspects Pyongyang of developing nuclear weapons. Experts of the IAEA were forced to suspend inspections of the experimental nuclear reactor because there they expedited the replacement of fuel rods. After this, it's impossible to ascertain was plutonium derived from the reactor for use in military aims. Today in Washington, the representatives of the United States, Japan, and South Korea are holding special consultations on the question of the nuclear program of North Korea. In the center of attention of the situation in Crimea, two main questions remain: the division of the Black Sea Fleet and mutual relations between Kiev and Simferopol. The first question in Sevastopol was examined today by a group of military naval experts who must define the parameters for the division of the Black Sea Fleet. ITERTASS learned that the experts basically concluded their work on compiling an itemized list for the division of ships and navigation systems of the Black Sea Fleet. What regards the division of bases and the coastal infrastructure, here, the sides are only defining their approaches at this time. Obviously, these problems will be focal at the Kiev talks, which should be held on the 8th and 9th of June. Today at the session of the Supreme Soviet of Crimea, an address was read to the Russian State Duma. It's prepared, considering all the delicacy of the situation, which developed, to do everything in helping to find constructive compromises on the basis of the Russian-Ukrainian agreement from 1990. During 2 centuries, it says in the address, Crimea served, and we're certain it will serve, the interests of the fraternal people of Ukraine and Russia. Today, the President Mishkov stated that the same initiative initiative was presented by the representative of the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. What regards the talks themselves, they are underway in the framework of a joint task commission. Currently, the main direction in searching agreement is in the International Bill of Human Rights. Unilaterally, the Supreme Soviet of Crimea is at work. Since morning, they discussed the question on forming the government. Despite the fact that the Vice Premier Saburov overextended himself to meet the deputy's demands, they yet took as their basis not his resolution project, but their own, and discussions continued until evening. Meanwhile, today, to the Bilbek airport, which is in the environs of Sevastopol, 127 Ukrainian paratroopers arrived. As ITRTASS learned, it's planned to deploy them to form a unit designated to defend the airport. Previously to Sevastopol, 350 National Guards of Ukraine were dispatched who are involved in maintaining social order in the city. Today it became known that in Tajikistan, another Russian military serviceman has been killed. The private Pavel Mikheyev from the 201st Russian Motor Artillery Division on the 1st of June was shot at by unidentified persons using automatic weapons on his way home. During this week, this is already the 5th victim from the Russian military servicemen in Tajikistan. The leaders of Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Georgia, Armenia and Azerbaijan agreed with the appeal of the President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, to the heads of the CIS on the need to bring collective peacekeeping forces into the zone of the Georgian-Abkhazian conflict. They signed a document reflecting this, which today the Executive Secretary of the CIS, Ivan Karachina, handed to the aid of the President of Russia in the Kremlin. Interfax reports that these materials will be used at the repeat presentation in the Federative Council of Russia of the question of directing Russian military servicemen to the conflict zone, which, according to the plan of Yeltsin, must comprise the hub of the collective peacekeeping forces of the Commonwealth. On Thursday, to adopt a positive decision on this question in the higher chamber of Russian Parliament, one vote was lacking. The development of business cooperation between Russia and Korea, about which during the last 2 days so much was said in Moscow, found a concrete implementation in Samara. In Samara, now operating as a new telephone station, the most contemporary equipment has been prepared by the famous South Korean firm Gold Star, is intended to connect 100,000 customers. In the triumphant ceremony of the opening of the station, government representatives of Russia and Korea participated. In short-term plans of the Samara District Administration and the Gold Star Company is the construction of several rural electronic telephone stations capable of providing reliable communications with the most remote regions. Specialists from the Korean Republic will soon perfect the technologies on the Samara oil chemical companies. It's planned also to establish joint production of a cable communication, and discussions of the projects in the area of metallurgy and construction as well are planned. Russia's reputation as the homeland of many unique technologies was reaffirmed at the meeting in the Bolivian embassy in Moscow. The major company of the Russian Federation and Bolivia created a joint industrial financial group to realize mutually beneficial projects. Bolivia, having great resources of minerals, desperately needs contemporary technologies which would allow to develop the geological, metallurgical, and fuel energy sectors. Because of the union of the Russian and Bolivian entrepreneurs and also the developments of the Ural scientists, from now on, one may not only effectively use Russian technologies in Bolivia, but also involve into productivity unused potential of the Russian industry. The President of Russia signed a decree on the sale of state insolvent companies and an addendum to that decree. The documents regulate the order and rules for the sale of state companies declared bankrupt. This measure applies to insolvent companies to which the privatization plan was not applied as directed. The government of Russia was instructed to prepare a law project establishing criminal and administrative responsibility of directors of companies for actions which precipitated bankruptcy. It's unpleasant but an unavoidable phenomenon of the market economy with which many countries encounter on the path to reform, no matter how unique this path may be. Cheap fat is found only in mousetraps, but Chinese fat appears in newspapers, columns. For Russians who are used to absurd decisions of the authorities, it would seem truly a miracle, the consecutive rigid course untouched by the command administrative system, but directed along a healthy path. As previously, the system system forced one to hunt for sparrows. Now, the prescription is to follow market reforms, and everyone follows. The development and implementation are the responsibility of executive power by special decision of Parliament, and no one else dares to interfere. According to law canons, for state companies, substantial benefits are provided. The revenue tax of 15 to 20% is applied instead of the usual 33 to 50. Unrestricted import and export of equipment, tariffs, discounts, and main thing is the entire profit is left for development. The volume of industrial productivity rose by 60% and labor yield by 2 times. But apart from that, the lobbying of non-state sector has caused a gradual process of degovernmentalization without privatization. Hard prices remain only on 80 types of goods, and the level of prices since 1978 has risen by 200 to 220%. For the perplexed compatriots, some clarification. The average salary in the country is around 3,500 yuan, that is $370 a year. The living space per person is 3 meters, and there are almost no vacations. Sanatoriums accept patients only who were involved in physical labor and with 20 years seniority, and even that is rare. And what's interesting, no one complains. Yet I'm not sure that many of us would like to try the Chinese way of life on ourselves. The Chinese experiment is only 16 years old, but already state and foreign investments have managed to change the traditional landscape under the sky. And although their ascent curve has not yet bisected our curve of decline, but at least they have a sense. Today, the Ural wagon plant stopped operating, one-time largest USSR manufacturer of tanks. The reason is the most severe financial situation there. Currently, the volume of productivity of tanks is only 1% of the previous pre-conversion volumes, and even this state order has not been paid for. The established operation of the motor of economics in any country depends how quickly and successfully the financial blood circulation functions, and this is directly connected with the system of accounts, which are the basic function of banks, which incidentally makes them differ from other financial organizations. The leader in this sphere, according to specialists, is Income Bank. In the international calculations and in Russia and the CIS as well, it prior to others, introduced the system of cashless electronic accounts. To maintain their quality, the bank, for the first time in Russia, built in Moscow the building of their own transaction center. Today, it triumphantly opened its doors. According to the first vice president of the bank, Alexander Titov, they had used the most state-of-the-art techniques and technologies. The building complex is a unique calculation network with an expanse of 60 kilometers and unites more than 300 workstations. It will permit to conduct almost 500 financial transactions a day. You yourself bless this house and those who labor within, and preserve them from every evil and onslaught. We remind you, the 30th of June is the last day for Czech privatization. According to the last reports from the Khabarovsk district, the flood disaster there has covered thousands of hectares of agricultural fields, destroyed roads, bridges, and communications lines. Underwater are entire villages. According to preliminary reports, the damage from the disaster is calculated in the tens of billions of rubles. No matter where there's a mishap involving fire, the victims are brought here to the burn center of first aid, the institute under the name Slivosovsky. Not only Muscovites from various cities of Russia and the CIS. Here there are specialists, that is, heads and hands. Here they treat using the last contemporary methods. It's overcrowded, uncomfortable, overfilled, and doctors and nurses have nowhere to rest, even if they do have a minute during such a difficult 24-hour duty. But that doesn't affect their results. And today, the first brick was laid of the new wing of the burn center. Judging from the participants in the ceremony, the fathers of the city understand the significance of the problem. The burn center will be reconstructed and one of the old wings expanded. The architects plan to make it a contemporary medical institution with all the necessary apparatus, and special wards will be equipped where, finally, it will be comfortable for the patients and doctors. Let's hope that these plans are realized with quality and speed. In Belarus, the memorial celebrations began, dedicated to the 50-year anniversary of the deliverance from fascist occupation. In the Republic, where in that war each fourth person died and all homes and regions shared the fate, this action acquires a special meaning and is held not only in large cities but even in remote areas, where in 1941 they dug their first foxholes and trenches, and where, on the last so joyful, victorious days of deliverance, again experienced the cruelty of fate, burying their military friends who had yearned for their homes in Russia, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, and Georgia. And here, the Brest fortress, as before, beckons to them, the warriors of more than 30 nationalities of the former Soviet Union who fought here as one. Thousands of veterans, the emancipators in various corners of our Commonwealth. Belarus sends invitations to come to their, and that means their own, celebration. In America, they're preparing to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Allies' landing in Normandy. D-Day, that's the name, the 6th of June, 1944, and its early morning will remain in history. As the valor of Americans, Englishmen, and Canadians, the Marine infantry, soldiers, and sailors, 3,500 ships. On the eve, Eisenhower directed them, were ready. They were prepared for what many consider now the last war of America for a just cause. President Clinton will honor them at the ceremonies in France on Monday, but behind Clinton, the invisible shadow of Ronald Reagan will be standing. 10 years ago, at the 40th anniversary of D-Day, Reagan sounded brave and bold. He was a man of the war generation. The current president was born in 1946. They say that he evaded service in the Vietnam War. What can he say to the veterans? 50 years ago, said the president before his departure for Europe, men and women of America saved democracy in Europe and changed the course of history. The veterans, ours and Americans, will understand the 6th of June and the 9th of May. These are their days. They didn't think about politics. They fought for a just cause. American nuclear missiles, as of the 30th of May, are not aimed at Belarus. The Embassy of Belarus in Washington was informed of by the official representative of the American State Department. In the opinion of the American side, in connection with the decision to withdraw Russian troops of strategic designation and return to Russia, nuclear missiles on Belarusian territory carry no longer a threat for the United States. Today, Boris Yeltsin met in the Kremlin with Carlos Papoulis, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greece, the country actively supporting the process of preparing an agreement between Russia and the European Union. In discussing this central theme, the President did not exclude the possibility of his visit to the Greek island Kerkyra, where in 3 weeks the session of the leaders of the European Union countries will be held, in the event that by that time the agreement will be prepared properly for signing. At the meeting, they also examined various aspects of Russian-Greek relations. The official visit of the President of the Kyrgyzstan Republic, Asar Karakayev, to France ended. Today, on the final day of the visit, he met with the President of France, François Mitterrand. They discussed questions of establishing and developing intergovernmental relations, economic and cultural ties. In the Élysée Palace, in the presence of François Mitterrand, Asar Karakayev signed the Paris Charter for New Europe, the Agreement of Mutual Understanding, Friendship and Cooperation. According to Mitterrand, France is interested in closer ties with a country where they respect the rights and liberties of citizens. The French press, telling about these days, and the little-known nation here describes it as an island of democracy in Central Asia. The head of Kyrgyzia offered the French side to participate in several projects, and especially to develop jointly with Russia and Kazakhstan uranium sites. An important part of the visit of the Kyrgyzstan delegation to Paris were the talks with the directors of the International Currency Fund and the World Bank. They discussed extending to Kyrgyzstan $200 million for a 3-year program of restructuring of its economy. As Askarakayev noted, the question here is posed as in Hamlet. The creditors insist on consecutive compliance with their recommendations on market reforms. Although they do have certain criticisms, discount credits will probably be provided. Today, the president of Lebanon, Ilyas Krau, declared in the country a national day of mourning. It's a symbol of grief for the 62 Mujahideen from the organization Hezbollah. They died during the attack of the Israeli Air Force on their military training base. In Beirut, burials were held for the casualties. The Minister of Foreign Affairs Times of Lebanon, Faris Briere, called the Israeli air raid in the depth of their country an open aggression. He emphasized that through its actions, Tel Aviv is attempting to undermine the progress of regional regularization. Tension in Lebanon has reached a limit. Israel brought in the tank and mechanized units into the buffer security zone. At the same time, full military preparedness is announced in the Lebanese army. In Yemen, the war continues for the south capital, Aden. Severe clashes continue, despite the fact that the South and North declared their preparedness to comply with the resolution of the UN Security Council on ceasefire. The operational leadership of a special unit of British Special Services died during an airplane crash, a helicopter crash in Scotland. The special unit was conducting a secret war against terrorists in North Ireland. Among the 29 casualties is the head of the group, who received all the agents' information on Ulster terrorists. The talks on ceasefire in Bosnia and Herzegovina, under the aegis of the UN, which should have started in Geneva on Thursday, have not yet begun. The special representative, the Secretary General of the UN and former Yugoslavia, will not give his approval for their beginning, since the Bosnian Serbs did not fully withdraw their forces from the 3-kilometer zone around the Muslim enclave Gorazde. In each of these houses, at least 3 mortars fell and thousands of bullets. From the ferocity of the clashes, one may judge about how important the Pasayan corridor is for all 3 warring sides in the Bosnian conflict. These clashes occurred here 2 years ago. Then the Serbs managed to connect through the corridor the 2 Krajinas with the conferred Yugoslavia. And now the armies of the Muslim Croats want to sever the corridor so that the blockade and the flight bans could become the beginning of a slow death for the Serb Krajinas. The narrowest 15-kilometer neck of the corridor, which contains the city Brčka, 3 times was attacked by the Muslims and 3 times by the Croat side. From these attacks, 6 people died in the city and almost 40 people were injured. In the Serb frontal town Doboj, during the last 3 months, 18 people died from attacks, of them 5 were children. The situation in the northeast of Bosnia and the center around Sarajevo remains extremely tense. This gave reason for the Muslim delegation to place conditions on its participation in the Geneva meeting, the withdrawal of all the remaining Serb forces from Gorazde. Tomorrow, these Moscow school children will go for a vacation in Italy. Today, they met with the organizers of the 2-week trip to the storybook Venice, representatives of journalists, the Press Fund, and the Trade Industrial Chamber of the Russian Federation. All of these children are sons and daughters of journalists who died or are missing as a result of what's called fulfilling their professional duties. The parents of these children dedicated their efforts to illuminate events in hot points of the planet. These children are going to vacation in Italy. I would like to wish that in their lives they did not know what hot points are. Today, the Russian Orthodox Church celebrates the feast of the Vladimir icon of the Mother of God. This feast is celebrated in honor of the miracle which was performed by the Vladimir icon, which in 1521 delivered Moscow from the onslaught of the Kazan, Crimean, and Nagai Tartars, led by the Khan Mehmet Giriev. And she saved our city from many other onslaughts and is considered to be the protectress and intercessor of Moscow and all the land of Russia. It was painted, according to legend, by the Apostle Luke on the tabletop which stood in the house where the Savior grew. The Vladimir icon of the Mother of God is one of the most venerated in Russia, and for 600 years was kept in the main cathedral of the Russian Orthodox Church, the Dormition Cathedral. This icon is not only a holy object, but a unique work of art. After the revolution, it was given to the Tretyakov Gallery, where labored over it were several restorers, and here the miracle-working icon again is in the Dormition Cathedral, specially delivered from the museum on the occasion of the feast, an example of how successfully museums and churches can cooperate. A state commission in Omsk welcomed something which is a completely unusual object, a kirche. There are in Moscow and Petersburg preserved kirches, but to build one especially, no one thought of it before. Meanwhile, the 2 existing on the territory of the country dioceses of the Lutheran Church, the European and the Asian, they have hundreds of parishes. Beyond the Urals, there are 300, and all of them congregate in buildings adapted for that use. The same picture is in Omsk, where there are 134,000 Germans. Germans. Apart from them, there are Finns, Lithuanians, Estonians, Swedes. The head of the diocese undertook this plan, the superintendent Nikolai Nikolaevich Schneider. He approached the government of Russia for moral support and the spiritual organs of Germany for material aid, and 2.5 million German marks were allocated for that purpose. And now we see what the wondrous work has been done here. Not only it is for services, but classes in the parish school. Soon there will be a library as well. And the Kirche is planned not only as a cult object, but as a cultural, religious center. In the end of the broadcast about the news of culture in our country and abroad. For the 31st time in the Czech capital, the International Television Festival Zlata Prague opened. Beginning last year, it became the major European competition for television programs and films dedicated to serious music, classical and contemporary. Television companies of 25 countries sent to Prague more than 80 musical films and broadcasts. And also their creators came here. But alas, as 1 year ago, there's no one here from Ostankino. Perhaps we have no more first-class programs, or can it be that we've lost interest for serious music? But previously, as we were reminded yesterday at the press conference by the director of the festival, Irja Pilka, Ostankino often won at this international competition and received prizes, diplomas and gold medals of Zlata Prague. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that we lose our good traditions, including this one. A noteworthy exhibit opened in the halls of the Chelyabinsk District Art Gallery. All of its displays, these are the works of art of Russia, Western Europe and the East from the 16th to 20th centuries. They're all from the collection of the Chelyabinsk collector Oleg Petrovich Malachov. For more than 20 years, he's been collecting works of art, and here is only a small part of what he's accumulated. We'll emphasize the best part. These are the magnificent Eastern vases, most precious ancient Russian icons, copper and plastic art, books. Incidentally, part of the works Malachov had gifted to the fund of Ural museums, and for a long time, Oleg Petrovich dreams about in Chelyabinsk a museum of private collections should open. How many artistic treasures one could show to those who love beauty. For the first international festival to the capital of Karelia, musicians arrived from Finland, the Republic Komi, Mariel, and Udmurtia. Many of them especially had prepared new programs, and they performed, apart from the traditional folklore, classical compositions transposed for the cantal. This is why the mysterious sounds of this most ancient Scandinavian instrument entertained without ceasing for one entire week, one after another. On the stage of the Center of Folk Art in Petrozavodsk, ruins were recreated of the eternal epos Kallio. In new performances, shining and dances were the jewels of the northern people, Vex, Karelian from the Tula region. And of course, there were winners at the festival as well, but the main prize went to the youngest viewers. It was decided the Kantele Festival will be held annually. Good evening. First, the French Open on the courts of the famous French pilot Roland Garros brought out an entire series of sensations. They continue at the finish of the tournament as well. I'll note the entry into the finals of the Russian Andrei Olkhovsky for the second year in a row. He's in a pair together with Larisa Savchenko-Nelen and will attempt to again become French champion. The undisputed leader of the championship, the Spaniard Alberto Berrettesegui, small, agile, but he literally squashed with his activity in the semifinals the almost 2-meter Swede Magnus Larsson. Alberto Berrettesegui is 20 years old, has a possibility to win an expensive birthday present for himself, a victory. But will the last year's championship of France, the other Spaniard, Sergio Berqueri, agree? Just now, the international duo Natalia Zvereva from Belarus and Gigi Fernandez from the United States of America, beating the French pair Allard Tossier, entered the finals of the tournament. From unpredictable tennis to the even more intriguing and unpredictable soccer. As is known, the 17th of June in the United States of America, the World Championship will open. The German and Bolivian teams will play the world champions, the German team, before their flight had a scandal. Ulf Kirsten, as an agent of the Stasi in the Ministry of State Security in the former German Democratic Republic, is excluded from the team. The Russian team in the control match beat the Austrian club Salzburg 9-1, 3 goals for Dmitry Radchenko. Meanwhile, the participants are convening to their site of the future matches. The Mexican team arrived in the United States. They, as you say, are not very glamorous, but they could potentially bring us a surprise. The Spaniards tested their potentials before flying to Helsinki. In the match with Finland on the 9th minute, Filipe Menambris opened the score. 4 minutes later, Julio Salinas scored the second. The hosts responded with an attack in 2 minutes by Petr Harnian. Further, the full advantage was by the Finnish team, but the Spaniards withstood and beat 2-1. The cyclist from Petersburg, Evgeny Bersin, keeps the pink leader's shirt even after the 13th rally of Giro d'Italia. At the start of the first European Handball Championships in Portugal, the Russian team beat Romania 27-20, Belarus, Germany 24-23. The six-time Olympic champion, Vitaly Sherby, headed the Belarusian team and brought it to victory within the Tour European Championship in Prague. The Team European Championship in Prague, the Russian gymnasts have the silver medal. The New York Rangers are the Vancouver Canucks, who'll get the Stanley Cup. The Americans at home at Madison Square Gardens managed to take revenge for the defeat at the beginning of the final series from the Canadiens. The hosts won 3-1, and the score in the series is equal 1-1. Now the teams are going to Vancouver, where they'll hold 2 more matches. I'll remind you, the Stanley Cup holder will be known with the 4th victory for any one side. Hello. According to the Oceanic Meteorological Center, tomorrow the weather in the North European territory of Russia will be defined by an area of low pressure. Therefore, in the Republic of Komi, in the Nenetsk Autonomous District, in Arkhangelsk, Leningrad, districts on the Kursk Peninsula and Karelia, it will be partly cloudy. In places, brief periods of rain at night, 3 to 8, during the day, 12 to 17 degrees. An area of low pressure will influence the weather of the Baltic countries, Belarus, the northeast and the central, and the Volga-Vyatsk areas. Here it will be partly cloudy, with periods of short rains and thunderstorms. At night, 7 to 12, during the day, 17 to 22. Temperature of the water in the Baltic Sea nearly by 10, in Klaipėda 11, in Kaliningrad plus 14. Partly cloudy weather with brief periods of rain and thunderstorms are expected in Ukraine, Moldova and central Chernozem areas. At night, 10 to 15, during the day, 20 to 25 degrees. The central and lower Volga and also Stavropol and the Rostov district will be in an area of high pressure. Here it will be partly cloudy without much precipitation. At night, 10 to 15, during the day, 22 to 27 degrees. The same weather on the Black Sea coast of the Caucasus. At night, 10 to 15, during the day, 20 to 25. The temperature of the water in the Black Sea near Novosibirsk and Odessa 12, Anapa, Yalta, Tuapse 15, Evpatoria 16, Sochi 14. Beyond the Caucasus, it will be partly cloudy with brief periods of rain, thunderstorms. At night, 12 to 17, during the day, 25 to 30. In Georgia, it's cooler, 17 to 22. In Petersburg, tomorrow will be cloudy with periods of rain, winds from the southwest 4 to 7 meters per second. During the night, 7 to 9, during the day, 17 to 19. In Moscow, it will be warm tomorrow. During the night, 10 to 12, during the day, 20 to 22. But as previously, it's cloudy, and in the afternoon, a brief period of rain and thunderstorms. The winds from the south, 5 to 8 meters per second. Sunday, the weather should remain warm. We in Credo Bank wish you a good weekend.